Kid, I hear it's your birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday!
Szanowni Państwo, witamy Państwa w kolejnym Innovators. Chciałem bardzo przeprosić za prywatem, bo zacznijmy jednak od początku. Mamy wśród nas trzech wybitnych profesorów. Naszego specjalnego gościa, profesora Hermana Simona. Mamy profesora Cieślika, który będzie moderował z profesorem rozmowę. Mamy również z nami profesora Grzegorza Mazurka, ale mamy z nami również Pawła Paska, z którym współorganizuję te spotkania, który dzisiaj obchodzi urodziny i dlatego postanowiłem trochę prywatnie wykorzystać tę okazję, żeby złożyć mu życzenia. Paweł, wszystkiego najlepszego. Nie zabieramy już więcej czasu. Powiedz jeszcze parę słów i przechodźmy do tego niezmiernie interesującego dzisiejszego spotkania.
Bardzo, bardzo dziękuję. Good evening, professor.
Yeah, good evening. Dzień dobry.
Dzień dobry. Hi, good
Thank
evening.
you very much that you are with us today. It's a great pleasure for us. It's true, it's my birthday today, so your presence is my birthday present. Thank you.
Happy birthday, Pavel.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. Okay, so let's start the webinar. Lars Guther from Ahaka, Poland, please say a few words from you. You are our partner, so the floor is yours. Thank you for being with us. No, mamy jakiś problem. To proponuję, żebyśmy przeszli dalej i poproszę o głos professor Mazurek. The floor is yours because of problem with internet connection.
Thank you, Bartosz. Happy birthday, Pavel. It's great that that's the way you want to celebrate, meaning you are working and spending great time, hopefully with us. I'm not hopeful, it's quite sure, I'm quite sure about it. Dear friends, dear colleagues, dear professor, and dear visitors of today's webinar, I'll be clear and short and concise because I'm just a part of introductory session, so I don't want to spend too much of your time. Just want to say a couple of three things, perhaps. The first thing is my personal perspective about Professor Hermann Simon, which, in my humble opinion, is like the Sèvres model, meaning he's the perfect professor of the times we live right now, because it's not only that he's successful in terms of his research activities, but the applicability of his knowledge, his wisdom in business as a professor of management is immense. So that's the unique person in a research world which achieved both huge success in science and amazing success in business. So this is also maybe not happy birthday celebration, but that's a huge celebration for me to be here today to, in a way, introduce Professor Hermann Simon to all of us. The second thing I wanted to say is that I am really happy because Professor Hermann Simon is for many years tightly connected with Koźmiński University as a member of our international corporate advisory board. And his hints, opinions, and remarks are of utmost importance for us for Koźmiński, which is very bold in its international perspective and wants to achieve a lot, not only in Poland, but at least in Europe. So Professor Hermann Simon, thank you very much for being with us and for sharing your amazing expertise in higher education institutions area as well. And the third thing I want to say is that Poland is great because of at least one reason. There are at least, I know, 3 amazing books of Hermann Simon published in Polish language. So those of you who are not very good in reading in English, for sure the book, for instance, about the pricing strategies and the recent book about the way of building success of companies, those are great books which are not dull, which are theoretical, which are based on secondary research. Those are great insights in the modern world, how we should build our competitive advantage and how can we take advantage of the mega trends which are around for building the success of particular enterprise. I wanted to be short and concise. I hope I didn't take too much of your time. Professor Hermann Simon, thank you once again for everything you do for the business, for the global community of businessmen, businesswomen as well, and for Koźmiński University as well, which is my particular thank you to you and to your wisdom and hints you give to us as a university. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Grzegorz. Very nice. I haven't been to Koźmiński for a couple of years due to Corona, but I hope I will be able to visit again in the near future.
Standing invitation, Hermann. So whenever you want, just come to us. But I don't know where you are right now, actually. Is it Shanghai? Is it Berlin? Is it Frankfurt or maybe New York?
I am actually in the room where I was born 75 years ago in my farmhouse in the Eifel, that's in the very western part of Germany.
So it's not far from Bonn.
It's not far from Bonn, yeah. It's rather close to Bonn.
Okay, thank you very much. I can see that we have Lars with us again. I hope now the internet connection is better. So, Lars, the floor is yours.
So it's my turn now.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you.
I quickly moved.
So thank you very
sitting
much.
in my kitchen now, and I hope that
you are
my
speaking now.
connection will be a bit better.
I think, Professor Simon, I think I should say some few words in the beginning, if I am correct.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Who can guide us on the program?
Maybe Lars first.
Lars first,
Yes.
I second, and Professor Simon follows me. Okay.
Yes. Let's Lars, please.
All good. Wszystko w porządku. Everything is okay. So I hope you can hear me, and I hope the connection does not fall away. I can just basically totally agree to what has been said, and I remember very well that I met Professor Simon, I think 11 years ago in the Netherlands. He will not remember that, but for me it was a big thing. We organized a meeting there for the German-Dutch Chamber in the residence of the German ambassador. Beautiful building, and the speech of Professor Simon was amazing. And that's also why I have the book in Dutch and not in English. So it's great to be here. Thank you very much for We Innovators also to invite us as partners for this event. It's a great pleasure. Maybe very briefly, out of the perspective of our chamber, the German-Polish Chamber of Commerce, we are representing the German business in Poland, Polish business in Germany. And very often I hear, unfortunately, when it comes to innovation, then Poland is still too dependent on international investors, and there's not enough innovation in the country. And I believe that, of course, when it comes to hidden champions, when it comes to innovation out of industrial companies, for example, and Germany is, of course, quite unique, but there is a lot of innovation happening in Poland as well. And a lot of it is happening also in a bilateral context. I think Poland has made its position as a very innovative and important partner to German industry and German business. It's the 5th most important trade partner now, so that's an amazing result, fantastic development. And when it comes to innovation, when it comes to R&D, Poland is growing all the time. The startup system has shown a really fantastic development. There are some amazing innovative companies. So I think the development is very promising, especially when it comes to IT experts. Poland is the #1 spot in CEE countries, and that shows also in investment by German companies like Bayer, for example, that has just invested in a tech hub in Warsaw. It's looking for 600 IT experts there. So there is a pool of really good workforce, of really innovative people. And well, it's of course with mixed emotion that the Ukraine war might even push Poland in a even more interesting position in the long run. When we look at the numbers, there are 30,000 IT experts who have registered in Poland from Russia, from Belarus, and unfortunately also from Ukraine since the beginning of the year. And that's like 10 times more than normal. So, of course, we see that there is a big brain drain from these countries. And Poland is, I think, the priority market where these people come to. So that gives another boost. And what we feel as a chamber is that Poland is, of course, also gaining a lot of strength as a nearshoring market due to the corona pandemic supply chain difficulties that we see at the moment. So there will be a lot of investment coming also by replacement from investors who have been in Russia and Belarus, who might now look for new locations. So all this is actually, in fact, a good basis for innovation in the future. And maybe it works out that also maybe by working together, there might be some more hidden champions coming from Poland as well. So this would be definitely a good thing. Maybe one last word from my side. As AHK, we support innovative companies. We have just launched this week this year's competition for the Polish-German Business Award. And that's all about innovation, bilateral projects. So if here is somebody who is listening to this, who might be interested in participating in this competition, I would greatly appreciate it. Please get in touch with me or with somebody else from our chamber to learn more about it. And I'm looking very forward to tonight, and the discussion and the presentation. Hermann Simon, all my appreciation to you. You are a great ambassador also for the German economy. So once again, thank you very much and great evening to everybody.
Thank you very much, Lars. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Because I had a strange technical problem here. I have a ring light. When I turned the ring light on, the external camera did no longer work. But I have set it up now with the camera in the computer, in the laptop. So I hope it works. Can you see me?
Yes, Professor. Everything looks okay. The only thing is that your presentation disappeared because it was. Now we can see it. Oh,
Okay.
it is. Okay, we have it. Okay, so
Is it there?
yes, we have it. I will add it to presentation.
No, I see it now too.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's give a floor now to Professor Jerzy Cieślik. Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So thank you for invitation. This is fascinating topic of the webinar, the hidden champions, the new game in the Chinese century. We are extremely fortunate fortunate to have with us Professor Hermann Simon, who has introduced this topic of hidden champions in the management and globalization debate back in the 1990s. At that time, was a very provocative idea because global world, global trade, global investment have been dominated by large transnational corporations. And the idea that smaller firms being leaders in very small niche markets and not publicly visible can play important role and in fact determine the position of their home countries in the global economy was innovative and provocative. I think the Germany and the role of Germany in global trade and investment was the most profound example. And in fact, it has inspired many researchers and to some degree the policymakers around the world to conduct further research, also in so-called emerging economies, also in our region in Eastern Europe. Here I should recall the work done on East European hidden champions with the involvement of Dr. Marek Dietl from Poland, who may join us later on. He just arrived from Davos. We have researched this topic of hidden champions at Koźmiński University. Recently, I should mention, we have conducted an empirical study together with the Polish Statistical Office of Poland, identifying the pool of potential candidates of hidden champions in Poland. Probably we can discuss it on this topic later on. So referring to the idea of hidden champions, Professor Hermann Simon is also a successful businessman, and while promoting the idea of hidden champions, he had also proven the feasibility of this concept by establishing back in 1980s Simon-Kucher Partners, which is a profound example that the hidden champion company can be successful. Professor Simon, the floor is yours then.
Chelsea, thank you very much, Dobrician, and thank you all for these nice introductions and revoking some memories. Lars, I remember the event in Holland, and Chelsea, it's wonderful to see you again. And Grzegorz, I don't know whether we met at Kosminski, but I hope we will meet next time when I come. So let's start with my speech. Hidden Champions, a new game in the Chinese century. And the book with the same title now will appear in about 4 weeks, Hidden Champions in the Chinese century. And let's have a look at the exports in the last decade. I have now here something which doesn't belong here. So first, the absolute exports over 10 years. And we see here that China is already number one by a big distance. That's amazing because for the first time on an annual base, China became number one in 2009 when the West was stagnating and the Chinese economy and exports kept growing. Now they are by far over the 10 years the number one. Second, USA, shortly behind that, Germany, and all the other countries much smaller. if we look at the per capita exports for the same decade, we see a different picture. Here, Germany is by far the number one, followed by Korea. And the other large European exporters, France, Italy, etc., are only about half the German exports. So how can that be? What is the reason? Why is Germany and why is China so strong in exports? And the first idea when you ask this question is that it may be due to large, well-known corporations like Mercedes, BMW, BASF, Bayer, Siemens in Germany, and similar corporations in the other countries. And actually, this hypothesis is true for most countries. I show you here the Fortune Global 500 companies on the horizontal axis and the exports on the vertical axis. And you see for USA, Japan, Korea, etc., it's almost a linear correlation between the number of large corporations and the export performance. But there are two exceptions, China and Germany. And we have seen China number one in absolute, Germany in per capita terms. So what is different for these two export leaders compared to the rest of the world? It's the role of mid-sized companies, what we call Mittelstand in German. In China, about 68 of these huge exports come from companies with less than 3,000 employees. And in Germany, also about 2/3 come from mid-sized companies and not from the large exporters. So we see here, yes, you need large corporations to be good in exports, but to really excel, you need, in addition, a very strong mid-sized sectors of global exporters. And these are the hidden champions. So what is a hidden champion? A hidden champion is a company which belongs to the top 3 in the world, has a revenue of less than 5 billion euros and is not known, so hidden in the public. Now you may say, but 5 billion euros, that's not the typical size of a mid-sized company, but you have to see that on a global scale and in relation to the Fortune Global 500. The Global 500 have an average revenue of 64 billion, and the smallest of them still crosses 25 billion euros or dollars. So the hidden champions are a new category, not really big, but also not typical small size like the baker at the corner. A new category of global companies somewhere in the middle between the small local firm and the big corporations. Now, when we look at the development of globalization, we see a big difference in the last 30 years. From 1919 to 2010, we had a phase called hyperglobalization. That means that global exports grew more than the global gross domestic product. And since 2010, we have a relative deglobalization. Global exports grew less than the global GDP. And you see it here in this picture that shows the so-called trade elasticity. That's the growth rate of global exports divided by the growth rate of global GDP. We call that trade elasticity, relation of 2 percentages, growth rates. And you see that was higher than 2 until 99. Till 2009, it was still about 1.5, meaning that exports were growing 50% more than GDPs. And especially since 2014, it's less than 1. That was well before Trump came on the stage. It's a development which actually started after the financial crisis. And this development will probably go on in the coming years. Now, a short look at the economic world in 2030. On the horizontal axis, the growth in $1 billion, and on the vertical axis, the gross domestic product. And we see a world split into two parts. The first global league, USA, China, European Union. US is still the number one, not in purchasing power parity terms, but in absolute terms. China, by far the largest contributor to growth. And then far away, the second global league was Japan, India, Middle East, Brazil, Russia, etc. So what does this mean for the strategy of the Hidden Champions? It means that the global competition is determined in the first global league. The first global league will account for about 60% of the gross domestic product of the world. And how does globalization develop in the next decade or two? Relative deglobalization is very likely to continue. That's driven by many, many factors. Goods exports will be substituted by foreign direct investments. So we will see more production in the target market, less exports, say, from Germany to China or from China to Germany. We experience, of course, a dematerialization of international exchange. Service exports are still growing faster than GDPs. Digitalization, remote 3D printing, where the data are in one country and the product will be printed out in the target market. And of course, Zoom. I am now not in Warsaw. I am traveling digitally. And I've been doing that for more than 2 years now. Whereas before I went sometimes for one speech to China and blew 2 tons of carbon dioxide into the air. And the bigger challenge here is, in this new context, to find the best location for each activity. And this means a total relocation of the global value chain. Just to give you a few examples. 2 German companies, which are in the mining technology sector, have relocated their competence centers for mining technology to China. We have no more mining in Germany. In China, it's still very important, so you can only do the business there if you want to be close to your customers. Another hidden champion, Vilo, leading pump manufacturer of high-tech pumps, is building its competence center for artificial intelligence in China. They say the conditions to develop artificial intelligence product and processes are better in China than in Europe. But this is not only in one direction. All Chinese automotive manufacturers have, for instance, a design and development center in Germany, because they say Germany is the best country to design, especially premium cars. And we see Tesla has just opened a new huge factory close to Berlin. Intel announced an $80 billion investment for 8 gigafactories in Europe, and the main location will be Magdeburg in Eastern Germany. So we see that companies are challenged to find the best location, be it in the Silicon Valley, be it in Poland, be it in China. And the value chain will be reorganized, and that will lead to huge investments. For instance, just before Corona, I had a meeting with 100 Chinese automotive suppliers, and they said, we all want to manufacture in Germany. So we all build plants there or acquire companies. So this is the development we have to experience in globalization. Now to the hidden champions. They have experienced spectacular growth in the last 3 decades. Here I show you on the left part of this slide 3 which have become big champions: the F Group, Fresenius Medical Care, and SAP. These were companies in the range of 2 to 3 billion euros in 95, and today they are in the range of 25 to 35, so 10 times larger. Growth stories you would only expect in the Silicon Valley, but not in old Germany. On the right side, 3 hidden champions: Prose, global leader in door systems, DAXA, European leader in logistics, and Bechtle in IT. These were companies in the range of about several hundred million euros, and now they are at 5 to 6 billion, again, 10 times larger. And the same picture in the smaller group: Rational, global leader in equipment for professional kitchens, Birkenstock, you know, these sandals, Egos, global leader in ball bearings made from plastics. These were companies around 50 million 25 years ago, and now approaching the 1 billion mark, and some smaller ones. On the right side, Formula D, special automotive services, Simon-Kucher, our company, Rofa Group, automation specialist. These were companies with less than 10 million in revenue, and now they are up around 400, 500. So we have seen very, very strong growth stories. Now, what determines the success? I call this the wheel of success. The core of these strategies of hidden champions is the ambition to be the best in their market. How do they achieve that? Through focus. Only focus leads to world class. Obviously innovation, and that combined with globalization, and more recently 2 factors have come into the game: digitalization and business ecosystem. And I will illustrate each of these aspects of the strategy by concrete examples. Ambition to be the best. Stihl, the global leader in chainsaws, says either we are the best or we don't do it. Either we are the best or we don't do it. Or Macke Vision, global leader in computer-generated imagery. Our ambition is to be the absolute #1 worldwide. Absolute #1 worldwide. And DeepL, the best translation machine. I don't know whether you know it. I can only recommend it. I use it all the time for all kinds of languages. We deliver the best translation in the world. There it starts with the ambition, the role of the entrepreneur. We want to be the best in our market. They achieve that through focus. Again, a couple of concrete examples. TeamViewer, global market leader in screen sharing, remote screen control. We focus on remote support worldwide. Nemetschek, global leader in software for architects and engineers. Focus on one thing and be the world's best at it. Or Flexi, world market leader in retractable dog leashes. We only focus on one thing, but we do it better than anyone else. Only focus leads to world class. But focus has a big disadvantage. It makes a market small. If you sell retractable dog leashes only in Germany or in Poland, that would be a very small market. So how do you make the market large? By globalizing. And here I show you the globalization history of Kärcher, the world market leader in high-pressure water cleaners. They started with their internationalization in the 1970s. And ever since then, they have added 1, sometimes 2 or 3 new subsidiaries to their global network. They have now 129 subsidiaries, also a huge plant in China. And I recently asked their CEO, he's 52 years old, what is the further history of your globalization, the future history? And he said, my ambition is to be in all United Nations countries during my tenure. So he has to go about another 10 years. It means he will have to open about 100 more subsidiaries. They go directly into the markets. They don't sell through distributors, agents, or intermediaries. They do it on their own. And since I was mentioning the title, The Chinese Century, the Chinese hidden champions will be the most serious, most dangerous competitors. Where do they stand with regard to globalization? They are in a very early stage, and we see this in the comparison here. A couple of German hidden champions like Hillebrand, global leader for logistics for alcohol beverages, is in 22 countries. Kershaw showed it already, 129. The Chinese are in a very early stage. They usually have less than 10 subsidiaries outside China. Some have more here, like Hikvision Surveillance, that's a rather large company, or Mindray Medical Technology. But typically, they have less than 10 subsidiaries. Now, to the new rules of the game and the driving forces: innovation, digitalization, business ecosystems, and sustainability. Innovation, the hidden champions spend double the industry average for research and development. What is more important, they have 5 times more patents than the average. Average is 6 patents per 1,000 employees for firms from patent-intensive sectors, and the hidden champions have 31 patents per 1,000 employees. And I show you now a few videos of breakthrough innovations coming from hidden champions. Oh, strangely, this doesn't work. This is supposed to be the Volocopter. That is the first electric helicopter in the world, which actually flies. And they got last year projects from Singapore and Dubai to establish an autonomous air taxi system. I have no idea why we can't see the video here. This is Lilium. Videos don't work. I may have to put it here to a video file. Oh, it's so complicated. I just explain it. How do I get back now? That is an electric vertical takeoff plane, Lilium, and they just went public last year in New York, got a very high evaluation. Now they are a little down because some of the development has been delayed. And again, I have no idea why we can't see the videos. This is HY4. That is a hydrogen plane which actually flies, developed in Stuttgart. And last case, also the video does not work. That must be due to the system, because with Zoom it always works. That's a flying pigeon, a demonstration project, very, very technically sophisticated solution coming from Festo. And Festo is the global leader in pneumatics, which is a core element of automation. And whenever I visit a factory in China or elsewhere, I always ask, do you have Festo equipment in your factory? And the answer is 100%. I have never visited a factory anywhere in the world which did not have Festo components in its machines and robots, etc. So we see many, many breakthrough innovations coming from hidden champions, but in niche markets, not in the big markets. And here again, a comparison between German and Chinese hidden champions, a selection here. And I use the number of research and development employees to compare. And here we have a very interesting observation that the Chinese hidden champions employ many more research and development people. Let me here just compare Carl Zeiss, global leader in optical and photonics products. They have 3,100 R&D employees. And if we compare it with Hikvision, the global leader in surveillance or security cameras, they have 9,300, 3 times more. And that seems to be a typical magnitude that with comparable revenue, Chinese companies employ 3 times more people in research and development. And that reminds me of an old story. I visited Nokia in Finland in 2004. At that time, they had almost 50% of the mobile phone market, and they're very arrogant, I must say. They said, we are invincible. We have 19,000 people in research and development. 19,000, a very large number. And 3 years later, I attended a presentation by the CEO of Huawei that was in Delhi, India. And he said, we have 52,000 employees in research and development. Again, about 3 times more. And you know what came of this story. So I think this is a point which the Germans and other hidden champions have to take very, very seriously. And this also brings me back to the lesson, find the best location in the world. It also means that German companies, Polish companies, European, American, have to do research and development in China to be close to the technologies of the future, especially in artificial intelligence. Again, sorry that we don't see the video. This is a video which shows you the following: the ascent of China in terms of international patents. In 2000, China was not among the top 10 in international patents. In 2004, it joined the top 10. In 2012, it overtook Germany. In 2016, Japan, and today it's #1 in international patents. So this is really very, very impressive. The ascent of China in terms, and these are not Chinese patents are not the same, but international patents have the high standard we have in Europe and the United States. Now, digitalization. I distinguish between business to consumer, so consumer digitalization. This is an American and Chinese game. And Europe, there are a few exceptions like Skype and Spotify, but generally we don't play a role there, and that's not going to change. Very different, it's for business to business, for industrial digitalization, where German hidden champions are very strong. And there's another difference between these two sectors. Industrial processes are highly complex. These companies are usually not started by university graduates, but by people who are deep into these processes. And let me again give you a couple of cases. I mentioned TeamViewer, global leader in screen sharing, remote screen control. TeamViewer's software is installed on more than 2.5 billion devices. Has any one of you ever heard of LSTM? That stands for long short-term memory. And you may use Siri of Apple or Alexa of Amazon. LSTM is the software behind these systems. It's installed on more than 3 billion smartphones from Germany and Switzerland, invented by Professor Schmidhuber from the Technical University of Munich. Or Celonis, global leader in process mining, company which has been evaluated at $11 billion. And a very modern area, autonomous driving. 40% of all patents are from Germany. And just a week ago, it was announced that Germany is the first country with 3-level authorization. So as of next year, Mercedes is the only company which has this car now. They can drive autonomously on highways, still with a speed limit. but we are not behind. We are actually leading, but nobody knows that. It's hidden behind the visible screen. And this number is also very impressive. Apple CEO Tim Cook said last year, German hidden champions play in the very top league. Up there, the air is very thin. We have 767 suppliers in Germany. Can you imagine that? Apple has 767 suppliers in Germany, all hidden or invisible, like LSTM. Very important new driving force are business ecosystems. These are corporations of legally independent companies who achieve working together something which any single one of them could not achieve. And I show you two cases: extreme ultraviolet lithography, EUV for short. The customers of these huge machines are the so-called foundries or integrated device manufacturers like Intel, Taiwan Semiconductors, Samsung, etc. And the company which makes the machines is ASML, that's a Dutch company. And there are two partners in this business ecosystem: Trumpf, which is a global leader in industrial lasers, and they contribute the laser. This laser weighs 17 tons and has 450,000 components. So in itself, the laser is an extremely complex product, and size contributes the optical part, which is equally complex. And as I said, these three companies in this ecosystem have practically 100% market share. Nobody else can make these machines currently for the extreme ultraviolet lithography. And here I have a very small business ecosystem or small company, MK Technology. They make so-called investment casting systems. These are systems very complex to cast extreme complicated shapes and forms. And their customers are SpaceX, the rocket company, PCC, that's a global leader in turbine plates, and similar companies, General Electric, in the aircraft engine division. And MK Technology is a very small company, but they have a couple of partners in the ecosystem. In China for rapid prototyping, fast casting. In Germany, Voxeljet, they make the biggest 3D printer. In Russia, also in France and Israel. And for instance, they supply these systems on which the combustion chambers for the Mars rocket are made at SpaceX, the company of Elon Musk. And 6 of their systems do the job of 1,000 large 3D printers. Again, a case where a group of companies together can cope with extreme complexity and supply the most demanding companies in the world, like SpaceX, with very, very complex products. The last new driving force, sustainability. Some people say sustainability is the new digital, and I tend to agree. The hidden champions are leading in sustainable technology, and that's a whole variety. Just to give you one example, that's an Austrian hidden champion, Lenzing. Normally, the normal shirts are made from cotton fibers. Oh, Marek, I see you. Hello, Marek. Good to see you.
Hello.
For one shirt made of cotton fibers, you need 2,700 liters and 6 square meters of surface. Lenzing makes fibers from wood for one shirt, and you can actually buy these shirts with H&M, etc. You need 180 liters of water and 0.7 square meters. So roughly you can say 1/10 of the resources. And Europe Germany in particular have a competitive advantage because we have the strictest regulation. So there are lots of opportunities in the sustainability sector. And again, it's ideal for hidden champions because most of these markets start as niche markets. Like today, I don't know what the market share of the wood fiber shirts is, but it's probably less than 2 or 3%. But maybe in the future, it will be becomes a market leader. Last point, employees and leaders. Of course, the employees are highly qualified and motivated. The hidden champions have a culture of top performance, and very important, the extremely high employee loyalty. The churn rate, the turnover rate is only 2.7% per year. For Germany, the average is 7.3%. And they're very strong leaders. I talked about the ambition to be the best. That starts with the leader. And a very long tenure, 21 years on average. The average for large corporations is 6 years. That tells you everything about long-term orientation. A last comparison on the general strategy between Chinese and German hidden champions. Global presence for the Germans high, Chinese still low. Global brands, Germans very strong, not in the public, but in their specific target groups. And the Chinese are still very weak there. Growth rate, Chinese high, whereas the Germans grow continuously, but with much smaller rates. And then, very important, Marek, IPO, the Chinese go very early public, collect huge sums of money, and they invest that in the growth, the high growth, and into the high number of R&D employees, which I showed. So the Chinese are not yet there, but they will be the toughest competitor. They're also strongly supported by the government. The government just started an initiative this February to create 1,000 hidden champions, and they are investing $1.3 billion into this initiative. In short, my own hidden champion story, Gregor mentioned that. We followed exactly the hidden champion strategy. And Marek knows that because he opened our office in Warsaw many years. When was that? In 2002?
2004, when Poland joined.
2004. So we followed the strategy 1-to-1. The goal, ambition to be the best. We have a new motto, official in June, unlocking better growth, whatever that may mean. Focus only on the market side, strategy, marketing, sales, pricing, scope, global presence. So this is the template of the hidden champion strategy. Where do we stand today? We are the global leader in price consulting. Business Week says Simon-Kucher is world leader in giving advice to companies on how to price their products, and a couple of others. We are also recognized as number one in our focused fields, so Financial Times in several countries, Forbes in the US. And this is our growth curve. We have about 1,800 employees now. Our turnover last year, I have it here in dollar, 522. In euro, it was 442 million euros. And this is our global network. We have now 43 offices in 28 countries. So I can assure you, we even have a business school in China, which preaches the hidden champions concept there. I can assure you it works. I have tried it out, and the hidden champion strategy works. So let me summarize. Globalization shifts from exports to foreign direct investments. I think this is also a big chance for Poland, especially for investments coming from China and Asia. Always assumed that the world does not end in a global conflict. Then, of course, everything can be different. Finding the best location in the world is mandatory. This is also interesting for countries to communicate what the best location is. For instance, Poland, very strong software, IT competencies. Ambition to be the best is the foundation for hidden championship. Only focus leads to world class. Avoid diversification. Globalize. The music plays in the first global league. So the global competition will not be won in Brazil or South Africa, but in the first global league. Do not imitate, innovate, invest heavily in R&D. Digitalization for European companies, rather focus on B2B. And let me explain why that is so. Uber is an interesting case. Uber tested its system for several years in San Francisco, and then they rolled it out within a very short time to all large American cities. When you test something in Berlin or in Warsaw and then roll it out to Europe, you have to overcome 27 bureaucracy, 27 languages. We don't have the market size to establish global standards. And Marek, if we think of Booksy, they are successful in the United States. So if you want to build a global standard, you have to go to the US and do it from there and not from Krakow. Business ecosystems are becoming increasingly critical to master complexity. Together, several small companies can master extreme complexity. Sustainability can become the new digital, and I think in the employment sector, create a culture of high employee loyalty is very important. Of course, the war for talent is also a very big issue currently and will be in the next years. So that was it. Just my most recent books, Pevney Sysk on profit, hidden champions, and my autobiography, Many Worlds, One Life. So thank you very much for your attention. I think I spoke a little longer than 30 minutes, but I hope it was not too boring. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Okay, thank you very much. I was asked to moderate the discussions. We have several questions already from the webinar floor, but let me start with my question, which relates to the fact that your book, you have in your title, you have in the Chinese century, and bearing in mind that you have a business school with your name in China as well, which means that there must be something. So in fact, you put China in the front. So I understand you believe that the role of China is sustainable. And to be a little bit provocative, we are at the same age, and I was back in the 70s, 1970s in the United States. And I remember the fascination of the Japanese management style at that time. Everyone spoke about how fantastic this organization, these rigid structures, and the fact that the people work for one company for life and so on. And what happened? So why Japan disappeared from the first league, and why not this may happen to China as it happened to Japan?
Yeah. Chelsea, people of our age remember this revolutionary book, The Machine That Changed the World, in 91 published. And at that time, the real estate value in Tokyo was more worse than the whole American stock exchange. First, I speak about entrepreneurs, about companies. I don't make a prediction about the political future of China. Politics can destroy everything in China. I would not exclude that. But when I look at the Chinese entrepreneurs and the innovation, I said they are number one now in international patents, their ambitions and also their technical competencies, they will become the most serious, the most dangerous competitors for the hidden champions from Europe and the United States. If they can operate rather freely, if they are encumbered, politicized, China may go down the drain in the same way as, or stagnate in the same way as Japan did. And I think the role of the President Xi Jinping is very risky for China.
Okay.
Marek has seen him in person. I haven't seen him in person. And some kind of absolute monarch and a party which has to say everything. If they intervene with the business, it may not happen. But from the ambition, the power, the competencies of Chinese companies, and especially mid-sized companies, not the state-owned companies, but these hidden champions, I see what they can do and what they want to achieve. And that's why I called it hidden champions in the Chinese century.
Okay. So maybe we take opportunity that Marek did is there. So maybe you would like to ask, to say something or ask the question.
Well, thank you very much. I don't want to steal the show. Simon is a really unique opportunity. You can interview him, ask him questions. So I'll be very brief. I have just came from Davos today. Sorry for being late for this for your presentation, Hermann. And there was, and in the Polish house and the Free Seas house, we had two locations there. It was said a lot about China, and basically people are quite worried what's gonna happen in China, especially with the real estate prices and high level of debt. And also, I would subscribe to what Hermann said about Xi. Our Polish colleagues here might remember that our president visited the opening of Winter Olympic Games, and Chairman Xi called him with a special Chinese word describing old friend. And it took literally 4 days to Shanghai Stock Exchange, which is one of the largest in the world, to approach us how we can cooperate. What makes literally no sense because they are like 50 times bigger than us. And I asked them why you contact us, and now the relations are so good, and your president and our president are. And this is the special Chinese word for old friends. So we should also become old friends. So, you see, it is a very well functioning free market, but with a strong guy at the steering wheel. And I'm really puzzled what's going to happen at the symposium of the Communist Party. My bet would be that she would have to share the power. So there will be again a collective leadership. But of course, I don't know. I'm not an expert here, but running so huge economy, so complex system just with one person creates simply risk for the system. And I don't believe that Communist Party, just for the sake of improve the resilience of the system, would rather go for at least change of the prime minister and most probably changes in the central committee of the Communist Party. But basically behind my statement here is also hope, because we don't need a contraction or turbulence in the Chinese economy, because it will create huge problems for the whole world. So I believe for the stability of China, it would be better if they could come back to the more collective way of leadership. But from my personal, very short account at the dinner, the president office, I can tell you it's a super nice person, super smart, and so on. So for sure, he's a great leader. And those who know me, I have never had appreciation for the communist system, but I can tell you that there is a quite high degree of meritocracy in the Communist Party as well. So it's not the Communist Party we can think from our Polish experience, but it's a mixture of, let's say, taking the parallel to Germany, there is an inverted comma Deutschland AG, so there's a kind of group of leaders, business leaders, politicians with very great influence on the German politics. The same start to be same things can be visible to less extent in Poland, and in China you have a old style communist rhetorics, but beneath that you have quite a deal of meritocracy. That would be my.
Thank you very much. Okay, so coming
Let
back.
me, Chelsea, if I may, I would like to add a few personal experiences or views. First, our main problem with China is not the politics, that's a problem, but the main problem is the conflict between America and China. Will we get between these millstones? Germany depends on China. Volkswagen is market leader in China. Mercedes, BMW sell 40% of their cars in China. And on the mid-sized level companies, the companies, hidden champions, I have to do with politics play very little role. I deal with them with entrepreneurs from all other countries. What's going on behind the scenes, I don't see. And a word on the party people. I have had many dinners where I was sitting on the side of the secretary of a big city or a province, and these are smart people. One guy, I asked him, what did you study? He said, I studied theology for 10 years now. He is the secretary of a party, in an 8 million population city. They are more like business people. Again, I don't know. I don't see what's going on behind the scenes. But in my discussions with business people from China, it's the same as my discussions with business people from Poland or from the United States. Yeah.
Okay. Coming back to the hidden champions, there is some confusion and reflected in the question that on one hand, when the companies go abroad, the classic advice, management advice, is to gain visibility. On the other hand, the definition of the hidden champion is that they are somehow hidden, not known to the public. How do you see, Professor Simon, this contradiction?
It's actually not a contradiction. Most of the products of the hidden champions you don't see. Probably nobody. Marek, did you know LSTM? I mean, the LSTM guys have to deal with Apple and Amazon and perhaps 5 others. And you use Siri of Apple, but you are not interested what is behind this. And the same is true, I would say, for 70%, 70-something% are in the B2B sector. So their customers know them. They have strong brands with their customers, but the general public does not know them. It has 2 disadvantages, potential disadvantage. One is the labor market. If you are unknown, it's more difficult to attract top talent. And if they go public, it's of course also not an advantage if nobody knows them. So there are some and they are becoming more open, but generally the leaders are very focused. They don't appear much in the public. They don't give many speeches, etc. And I think that's another advantage. An interesting finding, by the way, by Jim Collins, a famous American management author. He found that companies are long-term more successful the less the leaders of the companies are known in the public.
Oh, that's interesting.
He distinguished between plow horses who pull the plow, and show horses who appear all the time in the public.
Okay. I don't know how much time do we have, but still
I am flexible.
Yeah, okay. There are questions about the culture, the culture of the hidden champions. And I would like to rephrase some questions related to that. Let's say in Germany, you typically will refer to Mittelstand. Yeah. And to what extent this culture can be linked to some kind of family business traditions, or you have to move out of it and move to the classic corporate structure to become successful globally?
Yeah, that is one of the big challenges. Of course, the roots are in family business structures. About 70% are family-owned businesses, not necessarily run by managers from the family. We see an increasing share of non-family managers. 10% are public, 10% are owned by private equity firms, and 10% are parts of larger groups or conglomerates. And the challenge which many of these entrepreneurs perceive and pay attention to is, when they grow larger, can they keep this culture? And we have some very large companies who have been able to do that. The most famous example is Bosch. Bosch has 300,000 employees, but it's still the culture, frugality, modesty, humble. It still has the culture of a family-owned business, like a Mittelstandsbusiness.
Okay.
That's not true for other companies, but some have. Also, Wirth has 79,000 people now, global leader in assembly product, and they still have the same culture they had under the founder 20 years ago. But that's a very specific art to retain this family business type spirit in spite of increasing sense. And that's also a challenge for us. For instance, one element, next week, we have our so-called world meeting, this time in Madrid. We invite all 1,800 employees, even the secretaries, for a couple of days to this world meeting. And this is it's very costly, but it's such a unique experience and a culture building foundation that I think it's worth the investment.
Okay. The next questions is related to innovation, because your advice in the more modern era is to hidden champions: do not imitate, innovate. But on the other hand, the question was whether they should be also open to open innovation, and referring to, for example, the strategic advice of Professor Oded Schenker, whether hidden champions should opt for what he called innovation, parallelly innovate and innovate, buying innovations from the market or getting innovations from the market.
Yeah, I mean, everything is true in a certain sense, because it depends very much on the specific situation. The extreme case is very high specialization, that they are so deep in their processes that they cannot buy anything from the outside. Another case is, say, a classical machinery company which goes into robotics, automation, needs a lot of IT. They have to become more open because they usually don't have the computer and IT and artificial intelligence things. That's a big challenge for them to open themselves to corporations. We see that in these business ecosystem. These systems were not typical for the history of hidden champions, but they are more and more necessary now in order to integrate competences from different fields. And when it comes to acquisition, some hidden champions have also grown strongly through acquisitions. They usually do it along the value chain. So they increase the vertical integration. The classical case is Krones, the global leader for bottling systems. they started as a labeling machine company. So they put the labels on the bottles or the cans, and today they have everything. So they bought along the value chain, did not invent everything themselves, and today they can provide a whole factory to bottle Coca-Cola or whatever it is, mineral water, beer, etc.
Okay, so coming probably to the home base, there was a question, are there any hidden champions of a Polish origin? Do we know them?
Yes, Marek, how many do we have? I don't have the number. There are a couple, and I expect more in the IT sector, and I hope that they focus on difficult IT challenges rather of the B2B than the B2C type. Marek, what
on my
was the
list,
last
there are
number you
over
have
50, over 50 companies now.
Yeah.
I remember correctly, 54 or 56. And among the participants of this meeting is a head of strategy for Vigo Systems. It's a listed company with us on the Warsaw Stock Exchange. And in the niche markets of infrared detectors, they are world market leader. For example, the Curiosity robot on Mars was using actually the detector. So NASA is one of the clients. So it shows the level of quality and sophistication. Usually when you have this most demanding clients, you are the world leader. I think you would agree. So you see, you are surrounded, Herman, by the, even if you have a webinar in Poland, there are hidden champions on your way. There were also some hidden champions from the original list back from 2002, which bankrupted. It happens. Not many of them, but I think 4. And what is astonishing, Herman mentioned Booksy. It's not a typical hidden champion as it's a service company, and it's very B2C or B2B2C company. And it's really expanding, wonderful, but it's moved to the US. And this also happens to other IT companies that they are moving to the US, and that's a huge challenge for Europe, that we invest a lot in form of private but also public money in startups, but 2/3 of them move them to the US. And also there are some hidden champions, or not really hidden champions, but there's very nice collection of Poles who were successful in building up global companies. One of the most recent example is Wish.com, and one of the two founders, I mean, they're all US Americans, but one was born in China and one was born in Poland and was educated in Poland. So you see that this issue of talent retention and in the next phase, talent acquisition is the key challenge. So we have a great pool of talents, but we, relative to our talents, we should have had more hidden champions down in Poland here. But somehow it was through whole Polish history that it was a bumpy road. So people were moving out of Poland, some moving back, and there is a list of very successful entrepreneurs from 19th century or beginning of 20th centuries who, for example, could have been hidden champions today, or even owners or shareholders of their families could be owners or shareholders of large conglomerates. But for example, the Soviet Revolution dissolved these dreams, and I can also name a few cases here. So bottom line is that there are 50 plus known to us hidden champions, but of course there are many others which are very, very hidden, and one day we're gonna discover them, Herman.
Just see some numbers may be interesting in this context. Altogether, I found about 3,600 hidden champions in the world. Germany has the largest number with 1,500. Maybe I have a better coverage there. US is number 2, Japan number 3. In China, we have now a little over 100, and that also relates to some extent to the history of Poland. Many of the German hidden champions are more than 100 years old. They were founded before the First World War. And of course, it takes decades to build a global leadership position. That does not happen within 10 or 20 years. You need 2-3 generations. Look simply at the global network of Katja. They started 1970, and that's 50 years ago. Now they have 120. But you cannot do that in 10 or 20 years.
Okay. But probably the last question, you mentioned that you need time and, of course, and ambitious to grow, but then kind of support of government. In your book, you mentioned some projects, support programs in various countries, ideas. Could you indicate which of these programs directions could be effective? And
yeah,
you could advise as kind of promotion of these hidden champions in the country.
In my surveys, I also addressed this issue, the role of the government, and overall, the government did not play an important role for the development of the hidden champions, especially not with regard to globalization. But there are some very important contributions, and the most important contribution of the government is the vocational training system in Germany. Where you have the vocational schools run by the government, which the apprentices visit for 2 days per week, and for 3 days they work in a company. So this could use in modern talk, it's a public-private partnership. This is the most important part. Another important part is inheritance tax or absence of inheritance tax. In Germany, if you continue operations of your company, you don't have to pay inheritance tax. In countries with high inheritance tax, like in France, a Mittelstand does not develop because every generation, the company will be financially weakened because it has to pay these huge inheritance taxes. So these are just two not so evident contributions of the government to the development of the Mittelstand.
Okay, thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, this was a fascinating topic, and probably we could discuss it for hours, which is made that this suggestion that maybe we can come back to this issue in some time. At this stage, I can thank all the participants in my role and turn to the organizers of this webinar.
Professor and doctor, thank you very much for being with us. It was, I've never dreamed I never would have dreamed of having so many wonderful people in one webinar. It was really great pleasure, great lessons for every participant on the other side. So I hope we'll meet again. Hermann, thank you very much for being with us. Jerzy, thank you for being great moderator. Marek, thank you that you find a little gap between being in Davos and Warsaw. It was really pleasure to have you here in We Innovators Club. I would like to ask Paweł. Paweł, say us who will be the next our guest next month, and have a great evening. And I hope we'll meet in a market with in a different hidden champions. Thank you.
Yes. We invite you in almost a month on June 29. Yes, we met with Joseph Eschbacher, General Director of European Space Agency. So we have a very cosmic meeting with us. Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
very
you very
much.
much.
I very much
Bye-bye.
enjoyed meeting you, at least virtually, and I hope to be able to come to meet you personally in the near future. Thank you
We
very
hope
much.
so.
Have a good
Always
evening.
welcome. Take care.
Marek, also greetings for
Herman,
Anja.
sorry,
Yeah.
sorry for films. I don't know why StreamYard didn't work, but I paste all YouTube films to our guests. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Goodbye.
Okay. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.
See you. Bye bye.